Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Kim Maybon, and I am the board chair for the Corona Chamber of Commerce and owner of Creative by Design. We're excited you are here to join us today, and I'd like to take a few moments to share some announcements before I turn it over to Jeff, who will be speaking on what we've accomplished this year. Today's event is sponsored by ASH. ASH offers customers a welcoming environment to safely select over 1,300 quality lab-tested cannabis products from more than 120 brands. A member of their staff is always available to deliver knowledgeable expertise for every customer. ASH is also committed to advocating for important issues that are specific to the local communities that they are in. Thank you, ASH, for sponsoring this meeting. A reminder, please use the chat button to ask any questions. Send your questions to the chamber host and we will verbally ask them at the appropriate time. Our holiday mixer and toy drive is tomorrow night. We will be holding it from 6 to 9 p.m. at Tacos Al Fuego. It is a $20 admission and open for Corona Chamber members only. Space is limited, so please register now if you haven't already. Please visit the link on your screen for more information. Our last Coffee with the Entrepreneur of the year is next Monday, December 13th. We are excited to have two amazing speakers with us, Stacy and Ray Bass. This duo founded Boost Training in 2011, as well as Bass Education in 2020, and since then have seen both grow to unexpected heights. They combine their love of fitness and education to help student athletes reach their dreams. Register now to come hear them speak. This is one you won't want to miss. The Jimmy Kimmel LA College Bowl is little more than a week away. Tickets are on sale now for as low as $40. The game starts at 4:30 p.m. at SoFi Stadium, but get there early for some fun pregame activities. And don't forget, Anthony's beard is coming off when we sell 400 tickets, so get yours now. Learn more at the bit.ly shown on the screen. Save the date for our 111th Installation Awards Gala coming up on January 20th, 2022. We will be installing our new board of directors for 2022 and present awards to some incredible businesses and individuals. You can reserve your seat now for just $111 when you pay by December 31st. And don't forget to get your opportunity tickets for a chance to win one of 12 gifts valued at $500 or more each. Some of the prizes include a Fender guitar, a 70-inch 4K smart TV, and dinner for two for a year from Sizzler. Learn more by going to the bit.ly shown on the screen. If you are a guest and not currently a member of the Corona Chamber, we welcome you to join our chamber family. Meetings like these are just one of the many benefits to being part of an active, thriving organization like the Corona Chamber. Please outreach to our membership development coordinator, Robert Yanez, and he can review the many incentives for both joining and referring a business to join. Or if you're already part of the chamber family and you want to learn more about the many ways the chamber can help market your business, please contact our marketing and sponsorship specialist, Tammy Harwick. I would now like to introduce our legislative advocate, Jeff Gibson. Jeff keeps up with all of the movement happening locally, regionally, statewide, and federally. With Jeff's thorough analysis, he helps us to act timely on projects and initiatives that help make a difference in shaping our community. As owner of Occidental Communications Group, his knowledge of complex political issues and the great relationships he has built ensure that the Corona Chamber has all the tools to be effective on behalf of the business community. Please help me welcome Jeff Gibson to share a legislative update.
Thank you, Kim. I appreciate that. So now that I figured out the mute button, let's just dive into what we've got rolling here today. Hope everybody's having a great December morning. The day after that will live in infamy. And remember that every single ship that was lost on December 7th at Pearl Harbor, their last port of call was San Pedro, California. So that, in fact, they had named Battleship Row in Pearl Harbor because it was not a battleship port. They named it Battleship Row in honor of the real Battleship Row, which was in San Pedro, California. So an inordinate number of sailors came from Southern California communities on that day. So Looking at the California economic outlook for 2022, we're going to have an important week with the legislature coming back into session. By the time we see each other again, it's basically just a gaveling in of session and the opportunity to present some early bills. We are in the second year of a 2-year legislative session. And so what we're going to be looking at is a very early deadline of January 14th for bills that did not make it out of the House of Origin last time. And so an Assembly bill that got stuck in the Assembly and a Senate bill that got stuck in the Senate, they're going to have a second chance between now and January 14th, really basically the first 2 weeks of January, in order to make it out of their house over into the other house. So as anybody who's been with us for a little while knows, we track those bills very closely. And so they're called 2-year bills. And that's a process. If they get over to the other house for consideration, then they move through the process just like all other bills. So that's an important early deadline, January 14th. That wasn't there this last year. And so we will be tracking it closely. When the legislature is done this year, all bills that have not passed are no longer considered by the House. They have to be reintroduced with a new analysis, usually new language, all sorts of different pieces of the puzzle. So now, that being said, when the legislature comes back in, the governor sends a budget message in December. That will be coming next week. It's expected in that budget message that he is going to be, that the governor is going to be proposing raising state spending from its already record $232 billion, which was roughly what the state of California spent in the 1980s. Now, the reason I bring that up is because the economy has doubled since the 1980s in the state of California. And so we are now spending 10 times what was spent. Obviously, adjustments for real dollars make that a little bit different, but that gives you the size of state governance as opposed to where it was during the boom years in California, where we were growing by 8 to 10% a year annually. But we spent $232 billion this year, had a surplus of $75 billion. We're looking at this year, the governor is looking at proposing, now this is a proposal, the governor proposed about 80% of what the governor proposes makes it into the final bill. Usually the number that he proposes at the beginning of the December message in the December process usually is changed by about 10%. So there's some flexibility here. But to give you a ballpark, he's looking in the area of about $240 billion in proposing for new spending, and an additional surplus of $31 billion, which is largely reliant on income that is not in the bank currently, but is likely to be generated by stock sales, collection of either income or capital gains taxes. So last year we spent 232, or the budget year that we're currently in, because it goes July 1st to July 1st. So it's the 2021-22 year. We spent $232 billion, or we're going to spend about $232 billion on the budget itself, and a projected surplus of about $75 billion. Looking out, we're looking at spending about $240 billion, 2022, 2023, and about 30, with a surplus of about $31 billion. So part of that surplus is probably part of the last surplus. So it's inaccurate, or it's likely inaccurate to say that it's a $106 billion surplus, but it's a very big surplus. And a lot of that is generated off of speculative rather than productive income tax generation. So by speculative, by markets, by playing and timing of markets. So that's something that in the real world we're looking at and seeing that a large majority of what is now a pretty placid economic situation in Sacramento, from Sacramento's perspective, uh, without taking into account record-breaking inflation and other items that we'll get into here in a second. It's a lot of money, folks. So now, in addition, it's also an election year. And so, as we spoke about last time, two of the largest tax increases ever proposed, both which would largely vacate Prop 13 protections, are likely to make it onto the ballot or close enough to be discussed in the legislature. And those are the items that we look out for you, so that you understand what your tax rates are going to be and the challenges that you're going to be facing. So moving on to the unemployment picture, the versus the we have good news for the local unemployment picture. Since May, about 70,000 individuals have entered the employment market and are counted as being part of the workforce. And this is just within the Inland Empire. So a significant number of people have moved in since May. Since August, the unemployment rate has dropped from 8% to 6.3%, which is something that we're very happy to see in terms of job creation. So people are entering the market, people are finding jobs, and more jobs are being produced, which is all very good. Compared to the national unemployment picture of 4.2% unemployment, we still are about 50% off off where the rest of the country is. Now, that's a unique position for us to be in. Over the last 30 years, it's called the Riverside San Bernardino Metropolitan Statistical Area. So, Jeff Miller, as chair of the LAC, you may remember, back in October, implemented a year-end quiz on what all of the government acronyms are. And so as you're studying, this might be on the final, when you see headlines in a newspaper and say, oh, Riverside, San Bernardino, the reason that is because the metropolitan statistical area that Corona is in is generally known as Riverside, San Bernardino. Now, some of the statistics also come from the Los Angeles, Glendale, Santa Ana, or the Los Angeles, Long Beach, Anaheim metropolitan statistical areas. And if you would like to be bored for 4.5 hours, I'm sure we can get someone from the Census Department to explain the difference between the two. But it is what it is. So the good news is locally, we are producing jobs. People are entering the economy. Those are all good news. We have farther to go than the rest of the nation. Historically, since 1990, Riverside, San Bernardino counties have actually been one of the top 5 counties for growth nationally for the last 30 years. Obviously, we have more challenges now than we did then. And I will leave that to you to ponder why. So then looking at the third slide here, which are the inflation rate in Southern California, and actually statewide, is the worst in the nation. So California consumers, when you look at what makes up the core consumer items, the overall inflation picture will be reported on later this week. And we'll get into some economic terms that you're likely to start hearing a lot of if you haven't already in just a second. But according to the rolling numbers for consumer items and a price index, right now you're looking at a 0.2 increase from last month, a 0.2 of 1 point, which is a substantial. For instance, in 2019, you had to go 6 months to get a 0.2 increase in the same basket of goods. So you're seeing a price appreciation over a 3 to 4 week period that you would have seen over a 6 to 8 month period just 18 months ago or 2 years ago. So So that's the position that we find ourselves in. We'll know more on Friday. So some economic terms that you're going to start seeing that may or may not jibe with your experience in the out in the real world. One is starting on Monday with the announcement of a jobs picture where the economy only produced 210,000 jobs instead of the expected 500,000 jobs. A number of economists started postulating that the economy is reaching full employment. Now, at the same time that we produced less than 40% of the jobs that we were predicting, 4.5 million Americans last month and 4.2 million Americans this month quit their jobs and did not seek further employment. So we have 11 million job openings nationwide, and we are 14 million jobs, actually 14.5 million jobs now, behind where the growth curve was between 2015 and 2025. So we're substantially behind, but there's a very large move and a lot of media time that's already being spent on the idea that we are at full employment, and to look no further than that. So that's one of the things that you're going to be seeing. Full employment is the idea that by the widest, what full employment generally means is you take the widest possible understanding of what employment is statistically. And once you've reached about 3% unemployment, you're at full employment, 3 to 4%, right? Right now, we're looking at 4.2% unemployment based on the narrowest gauge that the Board of Labor Statistics has, where if I decided to drop out and quit and seek unemployment insurance and then got to the end of that unemployment insurance and decided not to seek any further job, I would no longer be counted as a member of the workforce. So therefore, I would not be counted toward unemployment. So what you're seeing here, when you see a very small amount of jobs being produced compared to what was predicted and what was expected and what is needed, you see a large number of jobs available and a large number of people, 8.5 million people leaving their jobs over the last 2 months is equal to the population of all but about 20 states. So you're seeing a lot of people leaving their jobs. In fact, it's called the Great Resignation. And that's what we're living through right now. So we're trying to dig in and continue to keep you updated on those items. And with that, do we have any questions?
So we actually have 2 questions.
Okay.
At what point next year will we start tracking legislative bills?
When they're introduced. They don't start being introduced until next year, until next week. There usually are about 1 to 2% of the bills that are going to be introduced are going to be introduced next week. Then, but after the gavel comes down and the session opens, legislation can be introduced at any time. By February 1st, all legislation pretty much has to be introduced. I think it's January 28th, February 1st, right in there. And by February 28th, it has to be scheduled for a hearing. So the bulk of what we're doing, you will see some bills next week that are going to basically be some headline bills from some legislators that enjoy seeing their bills covered in the press. So I would expect to see a couple of housing bills that kind of gather some attention. And then on into January, we will be looking at 2 to 3 bills each call after that.
Thank you, Jeff. I believe you answered our second question as well, basically the timeline on those bills being introduced. We do have a third question, and that is, what will correct the inflationatory spike, or what is proposed as the fix?
So The proposed fix, well, there's a couple of items. One, there has been too much money introduced over too small a period of time. And so inflation is the market trying to find the real value of assets. And you find the value of assets based upon the amount of money that you have in the system and the amount of assets. If you have more money than you have assets, if that is out of balance, then prices go up very fast. And that's where we are right now. So the Federal Reserve is removing what is known as quantitative easing. For instance, you're going to be finding that mortgage rates are going to be going up because the Fed was buying almost every single mortgage that was being that made it through underwriting, for instance. And so that's one of the things that they're going to be looking at doing. The second piece, and what most economists are saying, is based upon facts. So quantitative easing started at the end of the Obama administration. It went all the way through the Trump administration, and there was very little inflationary pressure, even under pandemic concerns. Quantitative easing is where you see the Fed is running interest rates at less than 1%, and oftentimes much less than 1%, almost near zero. And there was very little inflationary pressure. Suddenly, as you ended up with larger and larger bills coming through Washington, D.C., that essentially added $7 trillion to the economy between June of 2020 and today, that weren't there previously. You started seeing in February of 2021 that showed up in inflation. And it showed up after the third relief bill came through, which had very little to do with relief. It actually was allocating capital for ongoing government expenses. And so in that case, you're not dealing with an emergency. What you're dealing with is you're actually trying to spike the economy. And the hope was that they were going to be getting, that we would be enjoying 6 to 7% GDP growth and limited inflationary growth. What ended up happening was precisely the opposite. We're enjoying 7 to 10% inflationary growth and less than 1% GDP growth. So we're in a stagflationary period of time. Anyone who lived through the mid 70s through 1982 recognizes some of the feeling that you have when you go shopping, recognizes some of the other employment, etc. But also would be able to tell you it can get much, much worse. So you're not going to be finding a 21% mortgage rate anytime soon, which were pretty common in the late 70s, early 80s. So we hopefully never get there, but that really is what ends up happening is you need to grow your assets and you need to tamp down on the amount of money available to buy those assets. And then you get back to a equilibrium in which the amount of money you have can accurately value the assets that you have in the economy. And that will also be on Assemblyman Mayor Jeff Miller's final on December 24th at 6 p.m. Please all be here.
Thank you for that, Jeff. There are no further questions.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Jeff, for sharing those updates with us. As always, you can reach out to your local representatives, Assemblymember Sabrina Cervantes and Senator Richard Roth, both of whose contact information is on the screen. Before we end today's program, I'd like to share about who's on the call today. We have newly appointed Corona Mayor Wes Speake, Brad West representing Assemblymember Sabrina Cervantes, Norco College President Dr. Monica Green, former State Assembly Member, former City of Corona Mayor and Council Member and successful business owner Jeff Miller, and former Corona Mayor and Citizen of the Year Jason Scott. We'd once again like to thank today's sponsor, ASH. They are passionate about bringing the community together to create positive impacts wherever they can. They promise to make the experience less intimidating and best suited for each customer's individual needs. Learn more at ashsociety.com. If you would like to sponsor a future business briefing, please contact the Chamber. Join us next week on Wednesday, December 15th, as we discuss some of the new laws and regulations that are about to go into effect. If you would like to rewatch any part of today's program or would like to share it with others, it can be found on our Chamber's YouTube page. Thank you everyone for attending. Our meeting is adjourned.